Let's get it.
No. Relatively speaking, first day after the weekend. Relatively speaking, first day after the weekend. Mickelson Morley, they show that the earth they don't move, huh? What they do, shorten the length of the ruler. Hey, that's just how they fooled ya. Tune in Wednesdays, bet that we gon' school ya. Mickelson Morley, it showed no displacement. Nicholson, Gale, Pearson, it measured rotation. Let's break it down in layman. That means the Earth is stationed. No planets and spaceships, they're all animations. Relatively speaking, first day after the weekend. Relatively speaking, first day after the weekend.
In a world. All right. Hopefully everything smooth. And we are back. All right. How's it going? So we're going to talk about how modern cosmology is already dead. It's already been debunked. It's over. People don't seem to know that, so I figured we would cover it. And I will make a couple of the announcements again. So we are going to cover modern cosmology. Typically, relatively speaking, is at the beginning of the week. But I got requested by many people that I do one. Tomorrow night, we're going to bury atheism. I had an atheism debate, atheism versus creationism, debate con, in-person debate against Leo, modern day debate, Dallas. Not really going to cover the debate all that much, other than I'm going to make a presentation, just bury atheism. Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern. We have part 2 of In the Field with Robert, the PhD physicist. It'll be much more interactive is the plan. So you definitely want to stay tuned for that. So that's the next 3 days. Then we're going to cover the whole debacle that is the issue in the Middle East here soon. And that will be predominantly on Rokfin. So if you're not over there, go ahead, go to rokfin.com/WitsitGetsIt. Go ahead and sub and sign up so that you can watch that stream. We'll only intro it on YouTube. As we know, that topic is forbidden unless you say what you're supposed to say. But I don't do that. All right, so what we're going to do is over here and screen capture. I haven't been on here in so long. It took a minute to set it up. All right, so screen capture. I need to fix this real fast. Fresh and fit. Alright, now maybe everything will work. We can actually watch this video. Boom, boom, boom. All right, it should be good. You guys give me feedback. Let me know. Make sure everything's working properly. All right. So we're going to cover halt and ARP. And if you weren't here earlier, I talked about guy. He wrote this book called Seeing Red. This is his second book. Of course, it's a play on words because he was angry that no one was listening to him. In fact, he was getting excommunicated, ridiculed, threatened, told to stop, all the stuff people were attacking him. He pointed out that the current cosmology's interpretation of redshift is provably incorrect. The distance claims and assumptions are also incorrect. Therefore, the entire cosmology is in jeopardy. He was completely ignored, ostracized, but never directly rebutted. So let's watch a little bit of this video. Hopefully everything works. Give me feedback in the chat. And let's get it.
In the early 20th century, observations showed that what they thought were nebulae, which would later turn out to be galaxies, were all redshifted. These observations seemed to show a shift of the spectra through what they thought to be a Doppler effect. From this, Hubble formulated the redshift distance law of galaxies. The observed linear relationship between the distance and the redshift seemed to imply large receding velocities of distant galaxies and an enormous amount of kinetic energy. They also indicated that all matter originated from a dense, hot state several billion years ago. Franz Zwicky was very aware of the extraordinary implications of this and suggested another mechanism to explain the observed redshift. He felt that photons lose energy as they propagate through space. At the same time, Friedmann and Lemaitre used Einstein's equations of general relativity to come up with a solution in which space itself was expanding. Their solution became accepted as the mechanism producing the observed redshifts and are now part of the favoured hypothesis of the formation of the universe. The cosmology implied by general relativity was not accepted by Hubble. In a series of lectures, he explained that the familiar Doppler interpretation of redshifts seemed to imply a strange and dubious universe, very young and very small. More recent measurements estimate the universe to be 10 times larger and older than Hubble's universe, and the cosmological redshift is explained by the expansion of space. The mechanism behind many redshift observations remains unclear. The expansion of space does not explain the solar limb redshift, the K effect, compact groups of galaxies with one discordant redshift member, intrinsic redshift of quasars, quantized redshifts, alignment of galaxies showing the finger of God, and the high degree of uniformity of the CMB radiation. As a result, many models have been proposed. Some are based on ideas similar to Zwicky's tired light model, while others are based on Doppler redshift, space expansion, or even new physics. We can roughly group the mechanisms as follows: those caused by effects which directly relate to the distance or some metric of space itself, those caused by the geometry of space-time, those where a property of matter creates a redshift, those where the interaction between light and matter causes a redshift of the photons, and those where some property of light causes a change over time.
Okay. Let me come over here. Boom. All right, so that's just like a brief recap of what it is in case you don't know. I don't know if that's playing. I hope it's not. But Steven Simpson, thank you for the super chat. I also saw my boy Red for Bear. Or no, sorry, I just called you Red for Bear. Run Boston Bear. Which is there a way to super chat where you get all the funds, but it pops up on screen? Just curious. Yeah, we'll have to work on that. I stepped away. I thought I'd be able to use StreamYard, and clearly I did not. So I'll have to set everything up. I do think this works better. Sorry about the logo thing earlier. Okay, so now we're going to play a different video, because this one is important. We were trying to play it earlier. Okay. So let's start talking about how this debunks modern cosmology. And of course, if you guys are not new to the show, you already know we've done this thoroughly many times. You have Hubble tension, you have the horizon problem, flatness problem, you have the made-up story of the inflaton, you have the paradoxical idea that the universe started in a singularity. Then expanded. Expanded into what? I don't know, because supposedly space itself was expanding, so it expanded into literally nothing. There was nothing to expand into, even though the antecedent to expansion is, of course, space. Then, of course, attributing physical properties to space in and of itself is ridiculous. Then Edwin Hubble, and we covered this earlier, and I'm actually going to show you guys again. So we have Fritz. Now, I tell people this, and if you saw my debate, you saw him ask, T-Jump ask me for a discovery, and he said that this wasn't a discovery, but of course he's just wrong. So I'll have to do. It's really. All right, dark matter's existence was first inferred by Swiss-American astronomer Fritz Zwicky, who in 1993 discovered that the mass of all the stars in the Coma cluster of galaxies provided only 1% of the mass needed to keep the galaxies from escaping the cluster's gravitational pull. Of course, this is based on the assumption of relativity, or any modern, or any gravity at the time. So this is where you got the idea of dark matter. It gets worse and worse. 1955, Vera Rubin, galaxy rotational speeds. You needed more mass. And we've covered this, right? But the point is that they need dark matter because so much of the stuff that we observe in the sky operates as if there's way more force there than is supposed to be there based on the mass. That is, of course, because everything's intrinsically electromagnetic, and actually there is a much more dense fluid-like medium in space, pretty clearly, quote-unquote space, right above us. And what people call gravity is actually an emergent property. It's not point-specific. It's just an emergent property. Now, quickly, I don't want to digress too much, Einstein stole that idea. In fact, relativity says that gravity is an emergent property. It says it's the effect. Emergent property, an effect of the bending and warping of space-time. Well, of course, you have a fluid-like background medium, and it's waving and vibrating and oscillating. You could call it bending and warping, of course, right? So just vibrations, and it's like if you put sand on a table and you start hitting it with sound, the sand moves around relative to those vibrations. That's what happens whenever there is excitations, oscillations, vibrations in this fluid-like medium. Things begin to seek equilibrium, and they're displaced relative to that vibration. This is very obvious. Everything's intrinsically electromagnetic. All of these things that we're seeing in the sky is just electromagnetism. That's what it actually is. That's what light is. Light is an excitation of the background medium. It's actually intrinsically electromagnetic. It's electromagnetic radiation. That's what all of this stuff is. And so, of course, their idea that mass has some intrinsic property called gravity, or their idea that the bending and warping of space and time relative to mass causes it, it's never going to work because it's just patently wrong, okay? But the point is that they looked out, they saw all these things, they continue to see all these things that don't work, and they had to come up with a fix because I've given this analogy. Their theory said that there would be 100 pennies. They found one penny. Instead of being like, okay, clearly our theory's prediction's wrong, we need a new theory, they said, no, there must be 99 invisible pennies, but they're not pennies, but they act like pennies, but we don't know exactly what they are, but they have to be sort of like pennies, and we can't find them, describe them, define them, but I promise they must be there. So our theory is right, even though it was 99% wrong. And it just continued to compound from there. Okay? And then dark energy, the second major problem when you combine these two, makes up 96% of modern cosmology's universe, is because the idea was that the universe is accelerating and expanding, and that's where redshift comes in, okay? Because Edwin Hubble looked out and he's like, wait, we got a problem. He was like going to settle some cosmological disputes, and he's like, well, I'll look at galaxies and I'll determine if these galaxies are in our galaxy or not. And so that we can better understand some of these questions that we have. And he started studying these distant galaxies, which again, the phenomena is real. Okay? And when you look into the sky, let me break this down for everyone. Some people ask me this a lot. You just look into the sky with different spectrums. And when you begin to look in different spectrums of the electromagnetic radiation, right? Because you have the visible light spectrum, then you have the invisible, right? The not visible to the naked eye spectrum. It's all electromagnetic radiation. When you look in different spectrums, you look with different filters, right? You begin to see phenomena. You begin to see things going on in the sky. It's a whole bunch of electromagnetic phenomena. And then you can actually see it going on. And things spiral and vortex, and there's torus fields, because that's what everything is. And we've covered this. I will eventually kind of redo my Flattoberfest presentation on here. But anyway, all that to say, so that he looked out, he saw distant galaxies move in relation to the Earth, but they should not have. So they came with the idea that the universe is accelerating and expanding, inflating, basically, blowing up like a balloon, and it makes it look like we're in the center. Okay. Now we're going to cover one of the major problems with redshift, but there's a lot of them. I do encourage you to get this book. I haven't even finished it, but it's epic. I'm going to try to get his first book as well. and just look into Halt and Arp debunking redshift. Because if redshift is not, and of course redshift is just the light is moving towards the red end of the spectrum as opposed to the other end of the spectrum, which is the blue end, right? Ultraviolet blue, right? So basically the idea is based on Doppler effect that when it's effectively Doppler effect. There's also like what they call relativistic redshift, but we don't want to get too complicated. It's very simple. The idea is that the further away something is moving away from you, the more redshifted it will be because it's going away from you, kind of like an ambulance passing you, and then the sound changes as it gets further away. That's the idea. So they see redshift and they're like, okay, that we have to interpret that as accelerating and expanding away from us so that it makes it look like we're in the center, even though we're not. Now, no matter what any heliocentric apologist tells you, that is objectively what happened, okay? They had to change the model because of what they saw. Edwin Hubble himself said that if we're wrong about our interpretation of redshift and it's not recessional velocity or like effectively a Doppler effect, right? If that's not what it is, then the universe is actually closed and finite, much more dense. Everything is much more local, and might I add, suspiciously young. That's what Edwin Hubble himself said. Of course, he's the one that came up with it, which is why the supposed rate at which the universe expands and accelerates is called the Hubble constant. That's why it's named after him. Okay, now I know that was a lot, but the point is, if you just kind of learn some of these basic things, you'll begin to realize and look and see through the lie very quickly. They have dark matter, they have dark energy, mathematical placeholders, conceptual abstractions that have no basis in reality whatsoever to keep their model alive. Okay, and now we're going to cover what's wrong with redshift. And if redshift, once you debunk redshift, it implodes like a house of cards. What that means is that the Earth is in the center of the cosmos. Now, the Earth is not an object. Where we reside is central to all the movement around us. And we see this with all astronomical observations ever. Okay? So if you take redshift from them, it's over. It's absolutely over. And that's why the quote-unquote geocentric model is much more viable, because it doesn't need dark matter and it doesn't need dark energy. It doesn't need dark energy because the universe doesn't have to be accelerating and expanding to create the illusion that we're in the center. We just are. Now, if you're not new to this channel, you knew a bunch of that. There's a little bit of some of the basis so you kind of understand what we're talking about here. And this is one of the many things wrong with the current model and the redshift. And this is a death blow. It is the death of modern cosmology, amongst many other things, and we'll cover a lot of them. Okay, I know that was a lot, but hopefully that was edifying to those of you who aren't completely familiar. Let's continue.
In spite of the overwhelming observational evidence, in their view, redshift measures radial component of velocities, and if galaxies can be pointed at any angle, then this should be evenly distributed. Yet they are not. In fact, if we were to take the case that redshift was only caused by recessional velocity, then the fact that they come in measured equal steps in all directions would imply that we sit at the center of a series of explosions. So once again, we must seriously consider that redshift is not caused by recessional velocity. Let's examine what ARP uncovered about the quantization of redshift. ARP spent a long time cataloguing redshift and determined that there appear to be two periodicities, one at 72 km per second and one at 37.5 km per second. Let's examine the more recent observations of both, and let's start with 72 km per second. If we examine our local group, we know that there are a number of smaller galaxies and hydrogen clouds that are distributed along the minor axis of M31, implying that the central galaxy in our local group is ejecting or has ejected material in this direction. Here we see the galaxies up to a redshift of 940 km per second, which seem to belong to this line, and are therefore younger members of the local group. We can easily see that these are not background galaxies in the diagram, as if they were, you would expect this to increase sharply with fainter apparent magnitudes. More importantly is that this group shows a strong periodicity at 72 km per second. If we perform the same analysis on the sculpture group, which is the next nearest group between us and the M81 group, then here, once more, we see a very similar pattern, a clear periodicity at 72 km per second. Here we can see that even though the redshifts can reach up to 14 times this multiple, the average deviation from this period is only plus or minus 8 km per second. If we pick the 7 redshifts that are known with the greatest accuracy, this falls to 3 kilometers per second. Arp was not the only person interested in this quantization. Bruce Guthrie and William Napier, who were both at the Royal Observatories in Edinburgh, performed a rigorous statistical analysis on the galaxies with accurate redshifts in the direction of the Virgo cluster. They found the galaxies in the outer regions to be quantized in 72 km per second steps, but not in the inner part. They also discovered an even more pronounced periodicity at 37.5 km per second. A Fourier analysis of this clearly picks out this peak at 37.5. They published their results, and surprise, surprise, it was buried, ignored, and laughed at. In the
Well, that's so scientific of them.
90s, some other respectable astronomers measured many galaxies in a small field and once more found a clumping of redshift. After some considerable delay, they nervously released their results. It clearly showed peaks at 0.3 and 0.6, and this was perfectly in line with what Arp had discovered for the redshift of some quasars. They attempted to suggest that the galaxies were spaced in intervals of 128 megaparsecs. In 1967, Geoffrey and Margaret Burbidge had pointed out the existence of some redshifts in quasars which seemed to be preferred. In 1971, K.G. Carlson showed that these, and later observed redshifts, obeyed the mathematical formula 1 plus Z2 divided by 1 plus Z1 is equal to 1.23, where Z2 is the next highest redshift from the value of Z1. This gives observed quasar redshift periodicity of Z equals 0.061, 0.3, 0.6, 0.91, 1.41, 1.96. Sadly, no one in the mainstream took any notice of this. Yet, when we examine redshifts of quasars where more than one is associated with a low redshift galaxy, we see these numbers pop up. 3 Chinese astronomers, H.G.B., Chu and his wife, assisted Arp in conducting an analysis of the periodicity across all the data. They discovered that the predicted periodicity was a fit for this formula with a confidence level of 94%. If they made the small correction for the parent galaxy redshift, this increased to 95%. If they removed one of the 14 discordant groups, this rose to a staggering 99.5%. One of the attempts to discredit the redshift periodicity is centered on the argument that quasars were discovered by their ultraviolet excess, and that the excess was caused by predominant emission lines moving into the ultraviolet window at certain redshifts, and hence that this selective effect was causing what appeared as periodicity. However,
Dude, they just make up whatever they want to. It's so funny. Watch a little bit more of this. I know this isn't for everyone. That's why I'm not trying to kill you with it, but it's an absolute death blow.
if one examines quasars which were discovered via their radio emissions, then the same pattern appears. Now, this survey is split into 2 groups, one with a right ascension in the 0-hour region and the other in the 12-hour region. Now, these are the 2 principal regions in which the observations avoid the obscuring plane of our own galaxy in looking out into extragalactic sky. Now, what is interesting is there is a 3% difference in the offset between these 2 groups. This more than likely represents a difference in redshift between quasars which are part of our local group versus those that are part of the local supercluster, Virgo. Together, these results represent a 99.7% confidence in the periodicity of the quasars. If we examine the entire catalogue of Z greater than 1.3 quasars in the 0 to 12-hour region, this periodicity disappears. This is often what is used to discredit the whole concept. But here it is important to understand that from the radio data, Arp showed that the relative distance produced an offset in the redshift. And when we examine the entire redshift catalogue, we are also including quasars that have a lower redshift but are much fainter. If the redshift does not correspond to distance, then our best indication of distance is their apparent magnitude. So fainter quasars are probably much more distant, and it may well be that we are seeing a step change in the offset due to the distance, which will cause the picture to smear more and more with distance. The bright apparent...
And that does make some sense, but what's so funny is this is directly refuting the claim of distance based on redshift, okay? And that is a huge deal. That is a huge deal.
Apparent magnitude, high redshift quasars are mostly at the relatively close distance to our local group. We can see lower redshift quasars out to the distance of the local supercluster. If there is not much beyond the boundaries of the local supercluster, then we should see quasars of redshifts between 0.5 and 1 becoming relatively less numerous at fainter apparent magnitudes. Observations do indeed confirm this. In the 1940s and 50s, Willem Luiten measured blue stars looking for the large proper motions which would identify nearby blue dwarf stars. And years later, it would turn out that 40 of his stars were actually quasars. When we examine the redshift of these quasars, we once more find the same repeating pattern.
Okay, so long story short, periodicity, periodicity, I guess is how you would say it, also known as the redshift quantization, is directly contrary. Whoa, where'd I go? Is directly contrary to the claim of the redshift interpretation for the distance. Okay, it's a major problem for them. No one ever addresses it, and this is what's so funny, man. And I was talking about this a second ago. Halton Arpey came up with this amazing, this discovery regarding galaxies, created this very famous image. Very respected astronomer, but once he says something against the mainstream, he's a quack, he's dismissed, he's attacked. That's how it always goes. And I named Frank Wilczek, Nobel Prize winner in physics, comes out and says there has to be an ether. Quack. Robert Laughlin, Harvard professor, right? Well revered, Nobel Prize winner, comes out and says, oh, there's definitely an ether. Quack. That's how it always works. Okay, it's really funny. I also brought up Willis Lamb. That's where Nobel Prize winner. It's where you get the Lamb shift in the magnetic field, and that's a major problem for particle physics trying to explain the magnetic field. But anyway, he creates a paper called "The Photoelectric Effect Without Photons." Oh, he's a quack, or oh, he didn't really mean it, or oh, he just whatever they can come up with, And obviously, that is called a genetic fallacy, right? Discrediting or dismissing an argument based on the source of the information. It doesn't matter if Daffy Duck comes and tells you something. It's about the evidence. Right, so just like when I was pointing out Luka Popov, look at the dynamic equivalence using Newtonian with the neo-Tychonian analysis. Just look at it. You can see, no, that dude's a quack. This paper says he's a quack. Oh, he doesn't agree with the mainstream. He's a quack. That's stupid. It's very ridiculous. It's funny though, because in your own paradigm, if you believe in this nonsensical religion that you're unimportant, so you can be arrogant and not have moral accountability, in my assessment, right? Einstein was laughed out of the room when he first came up with his idea and first tried to propose it. Right? The Royal Society laughed him out of the room. What is this dude talking about? Dude talking about how Newton's wrong and there's no ether. This dude's insane. Laughed him out of the room. You would have been the same people who be like, oh, he's a quack. Now you believe what it says because they had to shift it because they couldn't come up with another explanation for stuff like Michelson-Morley. And they never even explained it. And they never explained Michelson-Gell. All right, anyway. Just making the very obvious point that just dismissing people by trying to discredit them, or dismissing the information by trying to discredit the person, is called a genetic fallacy. Oh, Witsit's a flat earther, so he can't know what he's talking about when he talks about atheism. That's poisoning the well, and it's a genetic fallacy. Oh, that was Witsit's idea. No, I'm talking about the evidence. Talk about the evidence. Anyway, okay, let's watch some of this one.
This video is a follow-up of sorts to one of the entries in my top 10 list for 2022, in which I mentioned the work of one Hugh Hoon Chai, an astronomer at Sejong University in Korea, who appears to have made it his life's work to dispel dark matter in favor of MOND, or modified Newtonian dynamics. If you need a refresher, dark matter does not actually exist. What we call dark matter is really just a misalignment between what our theories tell us to see and what actually shows up when we look. For instance, according to our understanding of gravity, stars should revolve more slowly at the edges of galaxies than at the centers. But in fact, stellar...
Wait a minute. When you have a theory, and then what we see doesn't match the theory, so the theory makes specific predictions, and it's a physical requirement that we observe these predictions if the theory's true, then we consistently make observations that don't match the theory's predictions when it physically has to, because it's a claim of physics. What should we do in terms of science? We should throw it out. It's been almost a century, bro. It's insane. Absolutely insane. It's so funny to me that people don't see this. You don't have to be a genius to see this, bro. It's right in front of you. It doesn't work. We've known it for a long time. No one can fix the problem because you have fundamental assumptions that are incorrect. Same thing with the wave-particle duality in quantum physics. I don't understand how people don't see this. Just repeat these mantras. That's how science works. No, that's the opposite of how science works, bro. If you see the evidence, it doesn't match your prediction or your theory or current understanding, you then progress to a more accurate understanding or theory or interpretation. You You don't cling on to it like some religious zealot that needs to believe that we're insignificant. That's weird. It's a weirdo philosophy, and it's just laughable. It's stupid. All right, sorry.
Speeds across galactic disks are relatively constant. Also, galaxies across the universe behave as if they had far more mass than their star count suggests they should. These facts have proven difficult to dislodge, and have remained consistent across multiple lines of evidence and nearly a century of observation. When confronted with such a discrepancy, one has two options. You can assume that they indicate the presence of an element of our universe as yet unseen, or that our theory is fundamentally wrong. The general rule is to assume the first before the second, and today the majority of physicists conclude that these...
Who said that's the general rule? The general rule is to assume the first, meaning there must be something that we can't detect or observe and can't understand and makes no sense. That's the first assumption. The first assumption is that there's something that can't be detected. You know what's so funny, bro? If dark matter was dark, it would block things out. It's invisible. It's so stupid, bro. It's so stupid, bro. I tried to explain to that dude. He's like, dark just means we don't know. I'm like, I think you've heard me say that, but really more specifically, it means it doesn't interact with the electromagnetic spectrum. It can't be detected. Okay? It's invisible. It's nowhere to be found, right? That's what it actually means. And it's funny because dark matter should be everywhere. Dark matter exists in such abundance that it makes up 83% of all the mass. Dude, think about this, okay? 1933 Fritz Zwicky, we just covered it. He went and he saw, oh man, this only has 1% of the mass needed to keep the galaxies inside the cluster, based on our prediction of gravity, right? That's a 99% discrepancy. Okay, now we make all these other observations for almost the next century in the sky, right? And they say dark matter makes up 83% of all the mass in the entire universe. Dude, your theory, your model is just stupid. It's not even close to viable. 83%? That means you're incredibly wrong. And then these people, they think they're smart. I wish I had my glasses. I don't know where they are. I'd put my glasses on. I think they're smart by saying stuff like, oh, there must be a difference in the quantum and the local and cosmological scales. No, that's not how physics works. That's ridiculous. I didn't know if you guys knew, but it's 83% of the mass. So it's like completely wrong, okay? Modern cosmology is dead. The death, it's been buried for almost a century. All right, anyway. You guys get it.
These observations assert that the universe is full to bursting with invisible matter, undetectable through our telescopes, yet outmassing visible matter by 5 to 1. They call this elusive substance dark matter, though one should only read that metaphorically as unknown rather than literally. If dark matter were actually dark, it would be ridiculously easy to detect since it would blot out light from other galaxies. Dark matter is actually transparent, which is far worse. Assuming, of course, that it is there. There is always the far more tantalizing possibility that we may be seeing evidence for a new theory of gravity. Over the last few decades, the majority of theories to dispel dark matter...
Yeah, it's because what you call gravity is intrinsically electromagnetic. It's an excitation of the background medium. It's an emergent property of the oscillations in a fluid background medium. It explains everything. It explains the fluidity. It explains the lack of viscosity. It explains the lack of mass. It explains all of it because there is an abundance of a primary substrate that is causing it. Okay? Oh, we may be wrong about gravity. You don't say, bro. You don't say. It's just crazy, bro. We live in such a world now, too, bro, where it's like... Let me go over here. Bro, where it's like... It takes some college dropout on the internet to point this stuff out. I mean, obviously, there's other people that do, but not many. And then you have these people running around like, you're so stupid. We know relativity's right. It's like you're so wrong that it's embarrassing, bro. How do people devote their life to this field and not just be the person that stands up and is like, this has got to go. This is completely wrong. You know, like, how do you do that? I just gave you a viable explanation. what you call gravity is actually non-point specific emergent property of the oscillations in the fluid background medium. Word salad. No, it's not. It's not point specific, meaning there is no center of mass pulling things in. That's not how it works. It's just that there's a displacement based on the vibrations or the resonance within the field. Like if I throw a pebble in the lake, okay, it causes ripples. If there is if there's like a floaty in the pool when I throw the rock, it's going to displace the floaty. The floaty's going to move relative to the ripple. Okay, that's very simple. It's very simple. It's not point specific, meaning there isn't a place pulling it in. It's just moving relative to the oscillations and the vibrations. It's not point specific. It isn't some force. It isn't a causal agent. It's an effect. It's the ripple. It's an emergent property. It's an effect. Because things that are attributed to gravity are real phenomena. We see real things. They say everything is gravity. No, the phenomena is real. We see real phenomena. You're making stuff up, though. It isn't point specific. And you teach children that it's mass attracting mass and that it's point specific. It's an intrinsic property of we've known that doesn't work in your paradigm for a long time. Why are you still teaching people that? Why when I talk to people, they're like, no, Newtonian and relativity are the same thing. Mass attracts mass. That's just not even close to what is required to be said now. And relativity doesn't work either. It's so weird. So that's what not point specific means. It's not point specific. It's not specific to a point. It's not a force pulling it in relative to a specific point. It's not point specific. It's an emergent property. It's an effect. Now, Einstein did get that part right, but of course, he took his geometry from Henri Poincaré, right? The space geometry, of course, he had an ether model, right? And the predictions of them are physically equivalent. It's interesting that they don't even consider that. You know why? Because if there's an ether, then the Earth can't be moving through space. He stole that. And so, of course, where the emergent property comes from is that there's something real there, right? As physical properties, it's a substantive background. It's a primary substrate. So that's where you get the actual emergent properties, like throwing the rock in the pebble, or the pebble in the lake. And Henri Poincaré came up with that ether model, and he was still trying to save the situation, right? And that's why he wasn't correct either. But my point is that, so it's a non-point specific emergent property. It's an effect. And relativity says it's the effect of the bending and warping of space-time, like I explained. That is closer to the truth, because it is just like if I put sand on a table and I play music, if I play sound, the sand displaces based on that. If I throw a rock in the lake, it creates ripples. Whatever's in the lake is going to move relative to those vibrations or those ripples, right? Because waving is an action. It's a verb. It is not a noun, right? So it's just the water's moving and things move relative to that vibration or that movement of the medium, the water in that case. Okay, so it's a non-point specific emergent property based on the oscillations of the fluid-like background medium. It isn't word salad. And of course, it's intrinsically electromagnetic in nature, because everything is. And that means that there's an action and a reaction. No, gravity isn't the one anomaly that doesn't have a reaction. There's an action and a reaction. There's a displacement. The equilibrium's always sought because pressure always mediates. Okay, so yes, that is a viable explanation. You put the Earth in the center. You have a background medium called an ether, okay? And then all of this stuff that we see in the sky is electromagnetic. You have vortices, you have torus fields, and you have ripples, excitations within this background causing things to move relative to that. Not complicated. If I have a pool and I create a vortex, if I have a whirlpool, right? And I start throwing stuff in the whirlpool, it's going to move around relative to that. It's very simple. Problem is that if you have that, the Earth cannot be moving through space. We have very intricate interferometry measurements that prove it can't be. That's it. So the only reason that no one can explain these problems is because they are dedicated to the belief that the Earth is flying through space and it's changing direction but not changing direction, and it's free falling but it's actually orbiting, and it's just not moving, brother. All right, hopefully that was edifying.
Have fallen under the umbrella of MOND, or Modified Newtonian Dynamics, which posits that, at very low accelerations, below a nanometer per second, such as is found at the edges of galaxies, gravity strengthens and begins to dissipate linearly rather than exponentially, as predicted. That appears...
Yeah, no duh. Teddy Ballgame, thank you for the $10 super chat. Geez, save some of the crushing for the rest of us. Thank you for the super chat, brother. Much love.
Appears to be what Dr. Chai believes, and in 2022, he claimed to have detected, within the gravitational curves of several thousand galaxies, a kink that corresponded to the predictions of Mond. This year, after studying the motions of 27,000 wide binary stars as logged by the Gaia telescope, Chai once again claims to have found evidence more compatible with Mond than with standard gravity, to a certainty level of 5 sigma, or 99.999997%. And he wasn't the only one. A separate paper published this month by Xavier Fernandez of Mexico's Universidad Nacional Autónoma came to the same conclusion. The binaries studied were all separated by more than 1,000 astronomical units, meaning their accelerations were all below 10 to the minus 10 meters per second. Binaries such as these offer an enticing chance to test dark matter, since dark matter's effects are only measurable on galactic scales, not interplanetary distances. I have to admit, I initially held off on writing about this. The press release for this discovery was so uncritical and certain that, were it true, even given our eventful era, every newspaper in the world should have been emblazoned with the headline, "Einstein proven wrong." As this did not happen, I searched for alternative viewpoints. And thank you, Ethan Siegel, for some much-needed perspective. He pointed out that 2 months ago, Indranil Banik of the University of St Andrews in Scotland, after studying the same dataset, came to the exact opposite conclusion, that Newtonian mechanics are sufficient to explain the motions of wide binaries down to nanometer accelerations. And he claimed a certainty of 16 sigma, which, if my mathematically illiterate attempt to calculate it holds true, is somewhere around a nonillionth of a percent, below 100. So what, as they say, gives? How can two interpretations of the exact same information come to such radically different conclusions? Well, Siegel notes, biggest problem is that these wide binaries have orbital periods of thousands of years, and even if Gaia is the best and most precise astrometric dataset in history, which it is, it would still require centuries of observations before we obtained enough data to accurately map their entire orbits.
Okay, that's enough. Oof, shut up. Okay, now I've played this video for you guys before, but I'm going to actually play it partially again. I find it funny.
Your many presentations to be right.
Exactly. At the whole can bring up the hype which you have available. That is raw for this, and we can test these now. So the moon, and you will see that the horizon just extends, and this is that when you go far away, you stop with it, falsified. That's a very good.
In a world.
One stops thinking about the flat Earth hypothesis and will only consider the round Earth hypothesis.
But
even though it's been debunked, my brother.
Does that mean that it's proven to be right once and for all?
That's a very good question, because we can never prove a theory, right? So again, so we see a round Earth now. We've discarded the flat Earth, and the hypothesis now, is it a perfect circle or is it not a perfect circle? But of course, all the remaining hypotheses, which of which there are still an infinite number, still.
What? Tim Timay, thank you for the $10 super chat. Globers and haters use word salad as an excuse against you because your responses are so eloquently fast and fluid, almost like you a relatively wrapping the response. Almost like you're relatively. Thank you for the compliment. I'm trying to become more digestible, actually, but yeah. I mean, everyone that's honest knows that the word salad thing is just an excuse. Like every single time someone said word salad, and I'm like, okay, let's talk about what did I say that was word salad? All of it. Okay, let's break it down. Right? So centrifugal divergence, centripetal convergence, conjugate geometric expression. You may not be familiar with the words. It doesn't mean it's word salad. Right? So magnetism is simply the conjugate geometric expression of the hyperboloid and the toroid, which is centrifugal divergence, centripetal convergence. Donut, the inside of the donut. Like I always try to simplify it at the end, right? It's funny. The word salad thing is funny, bro. I mean, kind of crazy. Like the other day, I was talking to some people in Discord, and I was like, yeah, I mean, well, we know we have a downward electric current of 10 microamps per meter because there's electrical equipotential lines increasing from the surface, right? So we have 100 volts per meter equipotential increase that causes a downward current of 10 microamps per meter, right? And so that gives us a downward electrical bias. Word salad, which part? I'm like, oh, okay. And then, of course, the density of the object relative to the density of the medium is going to cause a vector that's magnitude and direction, right? Because we have what people call the buoyant force. Well, what do you use in your equation? Little g, which is just an agreed upon average of the effect when things do go down. So that works perfectly. So, like, what's the cause of density? Well, all molecular and intermolecular attractive forces are electrostatic in nature. Therefore, density being defined as volume over mass or the compactness of matter. The cause of density would be what's holding the matter together with a certain compactness. We know that's electrostatic bonds. Therefore, the cause of density is intrinsically electrostatics. We also know that all the mediums that any object's in is intrinsically electrostatic, as the bonds are also held together by electrostatics. And then we know there's electrostatic transference or induction. So that's the causal mechanism that's actually distributing this effect, right? The buoyant reaction. Word salad. It's just weird. It's like everything they say. It's like, just be honest. And if you don't know, it's cool. If someone asks me, I'll happily explain what I'm saying. But can you do, man? I was just giving some examples of. It's just whatever. Actually, I'm trying to work on the fact that like fully accepting, like, I just don't care. Just don't care what you say. Right? If someone hears you and believes it, I don't care at this point.
Of which there are still an infinite number, still have to always be consistent with this global observation that the Earth is roundish, right? It's, of course, not a perfect circle or a perfect sphere, right?
Let's move from sort of simple astronomy to particle physics. And for particle physicists, one of the most exciting findings for them in the last few decades was the discovery of the Higgs boson, a particle that was predicted by the Standard Model in the 1960s, but that was undetected until 2012, when scientists working on the Large Hadron Collider sort of detected it. However, I've heard you say that, strictly speaking, the claim that the Higgs boson exists is a non-scientific statement.
Oh, cool. Sorry, I was muted, but that's funny. That's what was next said. I was just saying, yeah, it is a non-scientific statement, and they just say that the Higgs boson exists because they have to make everything a particle so they can quantify, and they're trying to quantify the material. But just in case you don't know, right, what they say there's a Higgs field over here. There's a Higgs field, and that this field is what gives everything its mass, practically everything its mass, right? But no, there's just a background medium. It's called an ether, okay? It's a primary substrate. Everything comes from that. The excitation of the ether, meaning the disturbance, it's disturbed from its... Someone said I should try to slow down. I'm trying to, okay. So the ether, it's like the calmest lake in the world. There's no movement. It's perfect equilibrium. It's inertial. Inertia meaning not changing, unchanging, right? It's at perfect rest. So it has an initial state of inertia, right? It's at rest. It's like the calmest lake ever. No movement. When it's disturbed or perturbed, a perturbation, right? So basically a disturbance inside of it, throwing a rock in a lake, right? That perturbation or that disturbance causes us to experience physical phenomena in the material world, whether that's static electricity, magnetism, electricity, light, matter itself, right? These are all effects of the excitation or disturbance of that background medium that's in perfect equilibrium. So what they say, anything but the ether. So they said, oh, there's a Higgs field. There's a Higgs field back there, I promise. Back where? It doesn't matter. Can you define field? Just math. Oh, math is creating mass. Yeah, it's so stupid. It's like now quantum field theory is moving towards the ether, and they just hijack it. And so now when I talk to people, I explain, no, like, the photon is really just a localized excitation of the background medium, but really it's just the intersection of the oscillating electric field and the oscillating magnetic field. Where they intersect, they call that place a photon, right? It's actually just an excitation of the background. Oh, well, that's what quantum field theory says. You're just taking that. No, it's taking the ether because it was wrong for so long it was forced to actually take it, right? So they say the photon, I just want to explain this. They say the photon is a localized excitation of the photon field. I'm like, okay, wait, say that again. What is a photon? It's a localized excitation of the photon field. They say the same thing about electron. The electron is a localized excitation of the electron field. I'm like, okay, that's what the photon is. Okay. So what is a field? What is the field? Define it. Oh, well, it has a vector. It's a mathematical description. What? So the photon is an excitation of math? What is the field? Oh, well, it's just a mathematical description of the photons. So the photon is an excitation of the mathematical description of the photons. It's legitimately stupid, dude. And I hope that you understand that that is ridiculous, doesn't make any sense, circular nonsense. It's an egregious reification fallacy. Math is an abstract descriptive tool. You can't attribute physical properties to math, bro. But anyway, they do the same thing with the Higgs field. Oh, the Higgs field gives everything mass. That's what's up, bro. That's what's up. True earthers are the ones that are actually progressing our understanding of the world. That's reality. It's 100% reality. Only the people stepping outside of the archaic religious paradigms of scientism are making any legitimate progression, right? And I'm not claiming to have all the right answers or anything. I just know that we're actually headed in the right direction, and we have viable explanations that need to be tested and more thoroughly expanded upon. And they're just sitting over there like, let's make up mathematical tools and pretend we're right. All right, I'm digressing a lot, but that's kind of what I do. But that's what the Higgs field is. This guy's base that he's talking about, how like, oh, that's ridiculous. I didn't even realize he was going to say that.
What do you mean by that?
Well, the correct statement would be the hypothesis that the Higgs boson does not exist has been falsified with 5 sigma confidence.
I see. So it's just a matter of being precise about the language
Sure.
with which we describe science and separating it from this kind of more colloquial kind of language.
Yeah. So with the Higgs boson, it's correct to say today the Higgs boson exists. And we, I don't want to use the word belief in science, right? But in that case, we would say I'm convinced the Higgs boson exists, just like I'm convinced that the proton exists or the electron exists, which does not exclude always the possibility that there might be a completely different mathematical construction, which would also contain entities which we call protons, but which have a totally different theoretical description. Of course, we don't know whether this exists. Maybe it exists. We just don't know at the moment.
Okay, yeah. This is the reality. So now this is I believe he's an astrophysics professor from Australia, okay? So when I say the electron doesn't actually exist, the phenomena is real, right? But the charge-carrying particle of matter, that is a point particle, it's matter, but has no size or shape, isn't real. Okay, it's just a unit of measure that we came up with because it was the smallest measurable charge. Okay, and then they said it was negative. They could have said it was positive, but they said it was negative. The negative charge is actually just discharging. It's the act of discharging, getting rid of charge. Okay, positive charge is actually the process of charging up, like it's going Super Saiyan. It's charging up. Okay, so negative and positive attract, but they don't actually attract. Just move towards each other. I'm trying to work more and more on making it as simple as possible. And they say negative and positive attract, or they say magnets attract. They don't attract, okay? They just move towards each other because pressure is being mediated, okay? So it's like if in my house, if I go out of town and I come back, let's say, okay, so if I'm in my house and it's cool in my house, I keep it at 70 degrees, right? And it's 95 degrees outside and I open the door. What's going to happen? The hot air is going to rush in. It's going to force itself in, okay? So if I throw a paper plane by the door as I open it, it's going to move around based on that pressure coming in the house, okay? So things move relative to pressure mediation. Same thing with something that's charging, what they call positive charge, something that's discharging, right? So it's good. It's just like heat to cold, high pressure to low pressure, negative to positive. That's all it is. It's actually acceleration to seek equilibrium, trying to go to the place it can equalize. That's why your coffee cools down relative to the surrounding air. The heat goes to the coldest, right? That's what everything is. The number one law is that all things seek equilibrium via pressure mediation. Okay? And I'm just explaining that because I digress, but that's the point. And so the electron it's what we've known it was for a long time, right? It's a gap in the field. There are little electric fields, okay? And there's a gap in the dielectric field. It's a terminal end of one unit line of dielectric conduction. It's basically where it's inducing charge, right? It has a concentrated area, and at the end of it, we call that electron. That's what it is. So this guy's pretty based. He's saying, I believe it exists, but I don't like to use believe in science. It's very possible it's something completely different. It doesn't exist as we think it does. He's correct. But when I say it, I'm insane. Well, it's so bad now that even when people that are within your own paradigm with credentials say it, they've heard me say it or something, right? So it can't be true. Okay, bro. The proton, the electron, the photon, just conceptual mathematical models. And they had to count everything, and they make sure they call everything a sphere so they can count it. Same with this, cosmological model. So anyway, hopefully that was edifying.
And what about dark matter, to go from particle physics now to cosmology? It's an entity that's postulated by cosmologists in order to make sense of observations that would otherwise conflict with general relativity and some other theoretical claims that cosmologists operate under, the so-called standard model of cosmology. So a lot of people are pretty convinced that dark matter does in fact exist. Are you skeptical of that statement for the same reasons you are for the Higgs boson statement of existence, or are there other reasons that come into this?
Yes, no,
Dude, I want to get this guy on In the Field. Hit me with the 1 in the chat if you think we should get him on In the Field.
I wouldn't say I'm skeptical. I would say that the existence of dark matter, cold dark matter particles, has been falsified with more than 5 sigma confidence. So it's not there. In fact, it's much more than 5 sigma. So now, which means...
Can you tell us what 5 sigma is for those who don't remember their statistics?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so imagine you observe an apple falling down from a tree, right? And you see that for the first time, and you say, that's interesting. Why doesn't it fly up or go sideways, right? So you do another observation, and again the apple falls down. But you wouldn't at that point say it's a law that it always falls down, because 2 observations don't really make the decision, right? And it's been established that you've completely lost confidence if you have to do this 2 million times. That's the sort of observation. So you observe 2 million experiments of the falling of apple which detaches from the tree, and if in every single case it always falls down following the same description of how it gets fast as it falls, at that point you would say you have the 5 sigma confidence, which means that the probability that the apple will not fall down has become negligibly small. You just don't want to entertain that idea anymore because it will absolutely not be economic.
So going back to dark matter, what makes you believe that dark matter's existence has been disproven with such high confidence?
Because we've done, since 25 years, we are studying the properties of galaxies, and we've put a lot of emphasis into understanding how galaxies function. So we means myself and the collaborators I have in many countries. And there are a few key experiments. You can do experiments in the sense of the theory making it very clear hard predictions, the dark matter theory, and then we can test that against the observations. And one particularly strong prediction is that if you have galaxies orbiting other galaxies and they are moving around in the dark matter halo, so every galaxy has this huge dark matter halo, and if it's moving around this dark matter halo, it will be suffering, it will be losing kinetic energies, it will be getting slower and falling towards the center of the other galaxy and merge. So this is called the dynamic of friction. It's the same as if you have a pot of honey and you put a marble into the honey, it will not accelerate downwards, but it will slowly sink. Yeah? Although if you have the same pot without honey, the ball would just fall down quickly. In the honey, it will sink slowly. So that is basically the same thing happens in a dark matter halo. A galaxy enters this dark matter halo and it slowly sinks down. It doesn't accelerate fast as it should if there were no dark matter halo. So we've tested this observationally, and the effect of the slowing down is not there, yeah, with that type of confidence. And so the galaxies are encountering each other far too rapidly. And a case in point is the large imaginary clouds, which is just now racing past our Milky Way, very close to the Milky Way actually, and it's far too fast. So, and the small imaginary clouds too.
So this was a prediction that was made by the claim that dark matter exists, and it's been falsified,
yeah, absolutely.
By observation. Exactly. So why do people still, in your view, cling on to this idea of dark matter?
Well, that's an interesting sociological problem which one would like to understand, because it has no rational basis. It is non-rational, and it's probably related to sociological pressures in the community. So when students come into the research, so they study and then they want to do a research project, they are, for one thing, attracted by the interesting ideas and possibilities of doing research, and the other by how great the group looks like they would like to join. So it's tribal thinking, and that pulls a lot of young people into an established thinking, because just that's where they can have a career, that's where the funding is, that's where the leaders of the field are famous, they get prizes. And that's a self-strengthening system in a scientific establishment which relies on competition for funding. And that is simply, and I think that's the whole fallacy of the situation, that comes from American United States. This concept of competition for funding in the sciences is the most stupid idea you could have even thought up, because that's absolutely not how science works. In order to discover the laws of nature, you cannot compete with anybody. You can only follow your intuition and work on that for as long as it takes to develop an idea. And maybe sometimes some ideas simply don't get developed into new theories, or not successful theories, but that's just what you have to do. You cannot have scientists competing for funding in order to improve our understanding of nature. That's just the most stupid idea ever brought up in terms of.
So, like, how is this guy not clearly making sense? You know, like, what am I missing here? So, very simply, he's basically explaining, if this jar was full of honey, then there was another jar that was empty, and then you dropped the penny in the jar that was empty, it would fall at a certain rate. Drop the penny in the jar that had honey, it would fall slower. That's what should happen with the dark matter halos, or when these galaxies get in the proximity of each other, because there should be dark matter there. So it should cause resistance or viscosity. So it should slow them down. That isn't what happens. Therefore, it is physically impossible that cold dark matter exists. That's what he's explaining. Sigma 5 is 99.99999%. It's as close to 100% as you can get. Right? He's explaining that the idea that you have to, like, get funding, therefore you have to slant what you try to interpret or discover, is one of the stupidest ideas ever. He's correct. So I'm going to try to get this guy on. So I want to go ahead and say this. Anyone has either personal connections with any type of professor or physicist or anything like that, or any suggestions of who we should reach out to, email inthefieldguests@gmail.com. inthefieldguests@gmail.com. And that email is only for that specific thing. inthefieldguests@gmail.com. That's, you can give me, ideally you guys can have contact information. So do a little bit of research, help a brother out, find their emails, or the best way to contact them, or maybe reach out to them yourselves, we'll happily reach you. You could send to me. I'll send a very professional email to everyone. So yeah, if you find someone that you think would be interesting, and mind you, the whole point is to have people that are open-minded, but they don't necessarily have to agree with me or our positions. We specifically want to have edifying conversations to really kind of destroy this illusion. And all the experts disagree with everything I've ever said or whatever, right? Like, no, they don't. And if you know someone that you think would be good on the show, send us an email, inthefieldguest@gmail.com. And what I want to do, although funding is an issue, is eventually I want to maybe even set this room up where people can actually come in person. We can have in-person discussions for In the Field or for just future podcasts in general. If anyone's interested in working out some type of deal where you help us fund it, that would be cool, or helping us run it. I think that'll be the next step is to set up a nice camera. You really finish all the background, the lighting, have the mic stands, and have someone else that can come over and help run it. As we're having the discussion, they can help run it, and we'll set this up, and we're gonna have professionals come in, and so we'll have to create a budget, because ideally you have to help them travel and get here or put them up or whatever. So I think that would really take this to the next level. I just wanted to go ahead and give you guys that idea. That is my current goal, is to create a podcast, not just live streams, but I'll still live stream, but you get it. So I think we should listen to a little bit more of this, but just so you know, dark matter has been falsified. Modified Newtonian dynamics also doesn't work. But you know what does work? Ether. Ether works. All right, let's watch a little bit more of this, because I think it's good. That would be epic. Yeah, I think so too. But like I said, man, funding is a big issue. All right, keep going.
Of our civilization. You can do that in economics. You get a better product, and that will be bought, and then you invest into that, but not in science. Absolutely not. Science is art. A scientist, the brilliant scientist, paints a picture, which is the theory. For that, they sometimes have to invent their own tools, like Newton had to invent the mathematics to actually do the unification, which he did, falling apple with the motion of the moon. And that's what one has to do today. Have to allow the scientists to work creatively. And the question is, how does one sell this concept that you allow some people?
See, someone said who lives close to him and has some skills. Yeah, so I'm in the Tampa area. And I don't remember it. For those, I don't think I've said it on this stream because I had to restart, but let me show you guys the PO box. Start. Wow. PO box 48892. PO box 48892, Tampa, Florida 33646. I will leave this up here in the corner for a bit. Because people were asking about this. So I did go set up a PO box, and we will start opening up the mail. You send handwritten letters, or you can type them. Don't make them like 7 pages, but I love interacting with you guys. So send me letters, and I'll read them on stream. We'll set up a stream, or certain streams we'll do it at the end, whatever. So PO box 48892, Tampa, Florida 33646. Well, yeah, so people were asking for that. I don't think I've pointed that out. And then actually, while I'm at it, I'll also show you this. So shout out to Toby. I see him in the chat. So if you go to markdownlinks.com/@WitsitGetsIt, Witsit.live is supposed to be working. I tried to change it. I don't know if it is working. It's still kind of glitching. We'll get it figured out. But Witsit.live will normally take you here once I get it set up. But the link's in the description. This has all my links, and I'll be adding to it. We'll be adding exclusive merchandise for patrons or YouTube members, etc. And I'm going to take this time to give a little housekeeping because I didn't do it on the stream. Something else that's actually kind of annoying. Something else is I'm going to start hooking people up with exclusives. Glad to see you back at it. Thank you, JD on YouTube for the $10 super chat. Yeah, we took a break, but we're going to start really getting scheduled and getting stuff popping. So if you're a Patreon, depending on the tiers, haven't decided, I'm going to start giving you guys like behind the scenes access. So like I'm going to go to NASA next week and I'm going to maybe do a private live stream where people can see me live while I'm going there. Now, eventually I'll have some evidence, or I mean some documentation. I'll show everyone that, but I want to kind of hook people up. We'll have exclusive Miswits merch for members as well. And I think I want to also integrate, like say you donate a certain amount on Cash App or PayPal per month, and I'll also kind of hook you. I'm going to bundle everyone in so that we can get some perks. I don't want you guys to get left hanging. So there's an idea. We'll keep you updated, but we're going to go back to this video because I think it's very telling if you pay attention. So it does pop up on the screen, so that's good. Florida? Yeah, Tampa, Florida. I'm in Tampa, Florida.
To be supported by the taxpayer to do that. It looks like a holiday. People just dream off. They go on a ship for 3 years and just dream up some ideas funded by the taxpayer, right? Doesn't sound right. On the other hand, that's actually the base.
Someone said heliosexuals merch. What if we make a shirt that says heliophobic? Dude, I'm totally gonna make a shirt that says heliophobic.
Of how our civilization progressed. In every single case, people always invented the new concepts, not under pressure, but because they themselves wanted to understand what's happening out there.
Exactly. So all the people that are satisfied with the status quo, please sit on the sidelines. You're not doing anything. Joan Margaret, thank you for the $20 super chat. Are you familiar with Tomb of Illuminations diagrams? And if so, what are your thoughts about it? Yes, I am, and I think that he's onto something for sure. I would like to have him on as well. Used to be called Flat Earth Philosophy. Tomb of Illumination. I think he's definitely onto something. I've had him on Glowbusters, and I find it very interesting. To go fully into it, it takes some time, but I will let you guys know. Oh, that's amazing. Dude, I'm totally making heliophobic merch. Heliophobic. We'll put a nice graphic on it. And I really want to make like exclusive, like super fire Miswits merch, like high quality. And I'm going to design them based on what I like. You know, like, I'll just tell you guys, I'm not on it. I like sweatsuits. I like hoodies and matching sweatpants, or like matching sweatpants but shorts. So I'm gonna make some super hard Miswits. I'm gonna make a dope logo for Miswits, and we'll make Miswits merch. So, and then I think we're gonna drop like an exclusive.
Joan Margaret donated $20 through Super Chat. Are you familiar with Tomb of Illuminations diagrams, and if so, what are your thoughts about it?
Didn't know that was gonna. Oh, I forgot. I set it at a certain amount, so 20 or above gets read. Yeah, Flat Earth Philosophy. I'll try to have him on. Anyway, we'll do some more announcements in a little bit, but we have some really cool ideas. And if anyone, what I really want to do is I want to try to create some type of like due date is today, but no baby yet. What am I missing? What do I not know about Kingdom Context? Don't know what that's in reference to. I feel like I should totally know though. Yeah, I want to create a situation where I can have people, like, we can create an organization and people can start to, like, we can bring in money, right? So people can help get the truth out there for a job. So that's my primary goal. I'm also making a business plan for homeschool curriculum, and we'll talk about all that later. But I really want truthers to start working together and finding ways to bring goods and services and value to the world so that people can put all their energy that they're typically giving to someone else for the truth. And I haven't even been able to fully do that for myself yet, but that's the goal. I think that we should all work together. So if anyone's interested in that, or interested in helping getting some of these businesses off the ground for percent ownership or whatever, email me and we'll work something out. All right. I'm not going to digress too much, so let's just get back to the video.
That's
So let's get back to the kind of scientific motivation for dark matter, putting aside all these interesting kind of claims about the sociology behind it. Dark matter was originally postulated to explain some observations that didn't seem to make sense with the theory of gravity that we had. What's the alternative? Do we need to abandon our theory of gravity? Do those observations mean that that's wrong?
Well, given the scientific deduction that dark matter does not exist with more than 5 sigma confidence, one cannot consider that model further, and so we have to indeed consider how can we explain what we observe out there. And so the next thing we do is to look at another proposition, which was formulated by Milgrom in 1983. It's a different law of gravitation. People call it the modified Newtonian dynamics. Nature doesn't modify anything, so I prefer to just call it Milgromian gravitation or Milgromian dynamics in equivalence with Newtonian gravitation. And that's what we are doing. So we are working now to develop a new cosmological model with the basis of those equations of motion, because just like Newtonian gravitation, we get equations. We can type into the computer the differential equations which the particles have to follow and solve. So we can do that in Mond. We can do that in Newton. That is falsified, and so we are testing those models under various boundary conditions.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe I was just muted. My goodness. I'm sorry. Okay, so someone asked if I have a new PO box set up. Yes, PO box 48892, Tampa, Florida 33646. That's PO box 48892, Tampa, Florida 33646. I'll put it on the links page in the descriptions moving forward. Sorry about that. Okay, and so what I was trying to say, I'm sorry I was muted, but you heard what he said, and also Newtonian dynamics, but that's falsified. And he's talking about how relativity is falsified because dark matter has been falsified. And of course, observation in which they claim to have to discover dark matter was actually the falsification of relativity. And now that dark matter has been shown to not even be physically possible based on the observations, relativity has been definitively falsified. Thing is, you can constantly come up with stuff. I could start making stuff up anyway, but just in case people, I want to get this guy on the show. Because all these people will gaslight you and they'll be like, oh, you think that gravity, you don't know about gravity, blah, blah, blah. No.
Steven
No one
Simpson
knows.
donated $20 through Super Chat. Pre-ordering heliophobic shirt.
Yeah. Heliophobic, baby. People get triggered, I bet. I thank you for the $20 super chat. Steven Simpson, much love, brother. I guess the next one's going to be read as well. I'll read this one. It's not going to be read. Hey, man, would you effie debate big tech on Jaron's show? John Smith, thank you for $2. I don't know who that is. But yeah, maybe. I mean, as long as he's not just like saying, and I don't know if he has a following. Yeah. But yeah, maybe. I don't know who that is.
Lucky donated $25 through Super Chat. Witsit equals based praise ya.
Equals base praise. Yeah, thank you, man. Much love. Thank you for the $25 super chat. Much love. Thank you guys for supporting. Apparently the Rokfin didn't work, so I'm sorry about that. All right, my point is that all these people that talk so crazy whenever we talk about this, no, dude, it's just a fact. Okay? Modern cosmology has been refuted. It is trash. It doesn't work. There is no bending and warping of space-time called relativity. There is no Newtonian dynamics. It doesn't work. Modified Newtonian dynamics also doesn't work. Redshift doesn't work. It's called Hubble tension. It's been shown to not match. You have a dark matter problem, a dark energy problem, no evidence for it at all. Those two combined make up 96% of the quote-unquote universe. The redshift shows that all these distance claims are not true. The inaccurate interpretation of redshift shows that quote-unquote space is much more dense. Everything is much closer. It's closed and finite, and it's much younger. Okay, that is not me. That is Edwin Hubble. It is just a fact if you understand it. Okay, the quasars don't have have way too much redshift. They're way too close to have that much redshift. Right? We have redshift anomalies everywhere. Okay, there is so much wrong with modern cosmology, whether what SC calls the baby galaxy paradox or whatever, right? When they looked back at close to the Big Bang and then they saw like, oh, okay, why are these galaxies so formed? They shouldn't be. And they just keep making stuff up. It is like a religion, only the difference is a religion doesn't change. So people hate on the scriptures so much. It's like, dude, the scriptures made claims a long time ago. It's not being changed and it can't be disproven. That's legit. These people are making up new claims every day. It's a religion, but they're like rewriting the creation account every day, and they still can't even make something that makes sense. Scriptures are literally viable. It answers the antecedent of intelligent agency, right? Not limited to space, time, or matter, or any confinement of quote-unquote natural laws. An external source, intelligent agency being the antecedent for information and order. It actually says that sound was used as it was spoken to existence. Cymatics actually manufacturing matter, the material world, via the vibrational resonance within the background, which would literally and physically and scientifically create matter. Cymatics, right? The manipulation of matter with sound or vibration. Consistently brings up the water, and we know that there's different modalities of water, and you could just call it fluid. That's what we normally call it, but whatever. Air is basically water. Everything is water. So all that to say that their religion doesn't work and they get to change it. I just find it very funny. So I just trying to make these points, dude. Don't learn some of these things and they're simple stuff, right? Just be like, look, here's the deal. They had to claim redshift was showing that everything was moving away from us because the observations in space, quote unquote, makes it look like we're in the center. Well, turns out the redshift doesn't work. Ask them why do quasars have way more redshift? Ask them, why is there not nearly enough matter in the galaxy clusters to keep the galaxies from moving away? They're not super complicated questions or anything, right? Ask them, where is this mystical dark energy to even cause the expansion? Ask them, what about Hubble tension? Why, when we measure this supposed expansion rate, it doesn't match up with our different methods or instruments? Ask them, why does the CMB, cosmic microwave background, show that the Earth's in the center? Why is it? Now this part, anisotropic inhomogeneous distribution. But anyway, I'm just saying, modern cosmology is dead, and this is the final nail in the coffin. Dark matter has been falsified. Redshift has been falsified. It is over. It is over, and so any intellectual that wants to progress or understand anything, they're gonna let go of that and just. I think it's important that we learn this stuff. I know a lot of people are like, oh, Austin's show is kind of nerdy. Yeah, but this is the thing. We live in this world now where we can't trust that we'll just learn it or that it'll be told to us honestly. We have to now step in and devote lots of time to studying, learning the truth, and then sharing it. Right? And so it is what it is. Ethereal, thanks for the gravy. Are you still planning on burying seismology? Yeah, I'll have to write that down. I forget, but maybe on I'll do seismology on one of the Skull and Globers episodes. Thank you for the $5 tip, Ethereal. One Boston Bear, thank you for the $5 tip. Kingdom and Contact, Sean and Lindsay's due date is today, but they may have to wait a couple more days for the prayers out there. Let go. Hey, man. Yeah, and babies don't care about their dates. Your dates are just a guess, but yeah, I'm super excited for you guys. That's awesome. So praise Yah. Everything is going to be super smooth. Say some prayers for Kingdom of Context. Another based baby? Let's go. All right. Watch a little bit more of this, unless you guys don't want to, but I think it's good.
One boundary condition is there's a hot Big Bang. CMB is the photosphere of the hot Big Bang. And then structures evolve as the universe expands in a traditional manner. And then we can apply, instead of Newton plus dark matter, because it's all non-relativistic, we apply Milgromian gravity without dark matter and study the structures which form. And the calculations which we've done show that what we observe, so the population of galaxies comes out just right. Yeah? You get these disk galaxies with the correct properties. You get the correct number of galaxies as a function of mass, and the correct density of galaxies around us. So that's most remarkable and exciting. And so we now will continue this by looking at whether we need to relax, whether there are some tensions with this picture. This needs larger scale calculations. Was there a Big Bang? And so on.
So this theory is called the modified Newtonian dynamics. Does that mean that we're going a sort of step back from Einstein and Einstein's theory of general relativity as an alternative to Newton's theory of gravity, and just modifying, instead of making the leap from the Newtonian paradigm to Einstein, we're just modifying Newton? What's the right way to think about it?
Well, I think
the Mons paradigm.
Yeah, the way I think about it is that the correct one. I don't know, but it's not a modification. Well, technically, the way it's done is we need to go on from that.
Well, first of all, it is a Big Bang model. In other words, there is a Big Bang, but the Big Bang was not the beginning.
So, like I said, tomorrow we will be burying atheism, okay? And I will get into the Big Bang as well. I will watch a little bit of this, and we're going to wrap it up. But, okay, now, if you watched any of it, I'll give you a bit of a teaser, because I'm going to make a whole presentation for you guys. Just bury atheism, okay? I have a lot of things on the list that people are wanting to watch. So, we're going to bury atheism tomorrow. Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern, we got In the Field Part 2 with Robert, the PhD physicist. If you haven't seen Part 1, watch that beforehand. It'll be a much more interactive stream. Should be dope. I'm going to cover the Israel situation. It'll be predominantly on Rokfin. That's coming up soon. I also am going to redo my Ether presentation, and that one will be very extensive, probably at least 3 hours long, and it's probably one of the most requested things going on. Here's a bit of a teaser for the atheism thing. If you didn't see my debate with Modern Day Debate with Leo, I explained that typically atheists adopt a philosophy called naturalism. And that's the idea that nothing exists outside of matter and energy or outside this material world. Like, that's all that there is, this material universe. Okay. If you apply the first law of thermodynamics, which is a natural law, so naturalism has to adhere to that, right? It's the parameters in which it can only believe in or invoke. It says matter cannot be created nor destroyed. Well, we have matter and energy here. So if it can't be created nor destroyed, you only have two options. Option one, it was transferred from somewhere else, or it was created from somewhere outside of this universe that doesn't adhere to natural law. Or two, it was eternally here and the universe is eternally existent. Well, of course, the Big Bang cosmology doesn't say that this universe was eternally existent. Okay? But even if someone tries to claim it, because all atheism does is, oh, what if? It's like, okay, appeal to possibility. So if you apply the second law of thermodynamics, it says entropy will always increase, right? And so what that means is that over time, the amount of usable energy in the quote-unquote universe is always decreasing. In order for there to be progressive decreasing of usable energy, that means there has to be a starting point, right? You can't just progressively in increments consistently decrease infinitely from no starting point. If there's a progressive decrease, right, it started somewhere. So now the atheist is forced, with the application of just two natural laws, so the first and second law of thermodynamics, they have to invoke something not limited to space-time and matter, an external source that can create matter and energy. It has to, in fact, be energetic in itself with a definition of ability to do work, right, because it was able to create this. So timeless, eternal, supernatural, because supernatural is defined as attributed to a force outside of scientific understanding or the laws of nature. Well, of course, whatever it is has to be outside the laws of nature, right? So that's supernatural. So now you can corner the atheist into invoking something supernatural by definition, external, a supernatural, external, eternal source that sparked the existence of this world, of this existence, of this natural world, this material universe. Why don't you just say a creator? Oh. Okay, so anyway, that's a bit of a teaser. We'll get much more into it tomorrow. We're just going to absolutely bury atheism once and for all. All you'll get is the same talking points back, by the way. You'll just be like, it's more honest to say, I don't know. Oh, it's just God of the gaps. And, oh, your stupid Bible, right? Creationists just need a sky daddy. It's you guys deny science. Like this is all you're going to get. You're not going to get specific rebuttals to the intellectual arguments, but we're going to bury it. I'll make a presentation for you. Anyway, all that to say, that's where this is coming from. Now, and they skipped over that obvious refutation for so long, but now the evidence is so damning that something had to come beforehand. They're like, oh, the Big Bang happened, I promise, but something was there before. There must be infinite universes or something. Cool story, bro. Okay, so this is Roger Penrose, and he's a pretty famous dude, and we're going to watch a little bit of what he has to say here. To show you that this is just a malleable religion because people need to feel like they're insignificant. They can't attribute anything to a creator. And don't let people intimidate you or gaslight you or appeal to consensus or scoff and mock you. And then we covered this a couple streams ago. That actually comes from this deep-rooted traumatic fear response of not fitting in. And so they project their fear onto you. They see you in this bold position where you're not afraid and you don't have to conform. And so they then begin to attack you. Okay, so don't worry about that. Don't let these people... You have the intellectual high ground if you understand these things. So just be confident and speak the truth, like I always say. All right. Let's watch a little bit of this.
Well, first of all,
We were told that the Big Bang was the start of the universe, and we never questioned it. However, it doesn't answer important questions. For example, what existed before the Big Bang? If the Big Bang happened because of nothingness, who or what created that nothingness? The Big Bang theory also suggests that the universe is expanding in all directions, but it doesn't explain what the universe is expanding into. What is at the edge of the universe?
So yeah, like they'll say space and time was created at the Big Bang, and some people will say nuh-uh or whatever. But this is the thing. Think about this. So a singularity is an infinitesimally small point. It's smaller than you can even comprehend, right? A singularity. And actually, gravity can't be applied to it. Relativity doesn't work. They just throw that away. It doesn't matter. Don't worry about it. So you have a singularity, just a dot, right? Like the smallest, infinitesimally small point you can imagine, a singularity. And everything in the universe started there, allegedly, okay? And then it expands in all directions. There's like a big bang, an explosion, expands in all directions. Okay. And it has space in it. Space and time and matter and energy all come from this singularity. What is it expanding into? That is how easy it is to debunk the Big Bang, bro. I'm gonna let it read it out loud before I read the super chat. It's that easy. What's the antecedent to expansion? Space, an area of volume to expand into. Oh, space expanded into nothing. Seems legit. It's literally that easy, bro.
Kingdom in Context donated $20 through Super Chat. My donation to your future video editor that helps you create a separate clips channel in your shorts/reels/TikToks. Keep pressing them, brother.
Hey, thank you so much, bro. The TikToks. Donation to future editor that helps create a clips channel for your shorts, reels, and TikToks. Press them, brother. Much love, man. Thank you so much for the support. Yeah, that's the plan. The plan. Should be cool. It's gonna be interesting. Wonder if I get kicked off. I'm gonna jump on with Caleb so he can help me build it. But thank you so much. Shout out to Kingdom of Context. And you guys, if you didn't see their virtual conference, you should definitely go check it out. So much gravy in there. You guys should definitely go check out the conference on his channel. All right, cool. Shout out to him. And like I said, everyone throw some prayers up for my boy, Kingdom of Context, for Sean and Lindsay and their beautiful baby. And Yah's got them, and it's going to be such a blessing. I'm very happy for them. All right. Watch a little bit more. Then we'll cover some of this tomorrow on the atheism stream.
Have you ever thought about the idea that the Big Bang may not have been the beginning? Recent discoveries support this idea, challenging the notion that the Big Bang marked the start of everything. What's even more interesting is that the famous physicist Roger Penrose recently proved that the Big Bang wasn't the beginning of the universe. If that's the case, let's delve into the exploration of what caused the existence of our universe and how the Big Bang theory has been challenged. Renowned scientist Roger Penrose has also weighed in on this topic. Over the years, we have developed numerous space probes and telescopes to unravel the mysteries of the universe. Among them, the James Webb Telescope stands out as humanity's most remarkable and powerful instrument ever deployed. Surprisingly, its recent observations are compelling astronomers to reconsider their understanding of the universe's origin. Roger Penrose, a celebrated physicist, has expressed his amazement at the astonishing discoveries made by the JWST. The issue arises from the fact that the James Webb Space Telescope is disrupting our current understanding of the universe. The realization that textbooks explaining the beginning of the universe may need revisions has struck us. So, what exactly did the JWST uncover that is causing scientists to reconsider the origins of the universe?
All right, we don't got to watch this. Basically, I looked back at what they said was near the Big Bang, because they think the further you see, the further back in time you see, because they're just intellectual giants. And the galaxies should have been not very formed because they formed more, they gained more complexity and substantive formation over time. So it should be further and further away from this alleged Big Bang. And they saw that they're way too formed, way closer to the quote unquote Big Bang. Now, that's all pseudoscientific nonsense, let's be real. But anyway, we don't have to watch that. It's pretty simple. You're doing well, Austin. Thank you so much. Yeah, I saw where this guy said, your grammar's terrible. You misuse words, LOL. And he literally typed MISS space USE, like it's a female's name or something. The irony. Shalom, fam, shalom. Ancient Hinduism teaches a variation of the Big Bang. They claim it was the first vibration that created all things. It became a symbol they call Trimurti, also chanted as the during meditation. Wow, that's some gravy, bro. Crazy because it's got this little truth in there, right? Like if everything was spoken into existence, it'd be vibrational. But it is interesting. In a world. All right, we'll let it read the super chat. All right, cool. So basically, the stream is very simple. It's like redshift has been debunked, and people can say no, but it had. The interpretation of redshift's been debunked, and that debunks all of cosmology. Okay, and that marks the death of it. But in the real more modern death, because that was, Harp was writing this back in the day. He made the galaxy pictures back in like 60s, and then afterwards he wrote about the redshift. But the real death blow here is that they assume dark matter to exist. They don't know what it is, but something has to be there that acts as matter, and it can't interact with electromagnetic spectrum, blah, blah. Basically, it's invisible, whatever that means. And there are things that are invisible, right? But not matter.
Run Boston Bear donated $49.99 through Super Chat. Relatively speaking, we're seeking the truth in all things, and it's peaking. The tidal wave is happening while the globers are napping. Before they know it, they'll join us flat smacking. How did the AI rap go? Smile.
Relatively speaking, we're seeking the truth in all things, and it's peaking. The tidal wave is happening while the globers are napping. Before they know it, they'll join us flat smacking. Thank you for the generous super chat, brother. Shout out to Run Boston Bear. I came up with some bars. It was like slay competition with a composition. How would you know that you're in the ending if you skip the beginning and Enoch were missing? Often the prophets they pop in linen. Like that. How would you know you're in the ending if you skip the beginning and Enoch were missing? All right, cool. Yeah. So anyway, and then they've seen that if they assume dark matter exists, it doesn't work. Okay, and so it doesn't really matter what anyone says. It doesn't work. And so when you say, "Hey, did you know that we just experienced the death of modern cosmology?" They'll be like, "You're so stupid." I'm like, "No, seriously, it doesn't work." Right? Like they need dark matter, but it's now been proven that dark matter doesn't exist. It doesn't work. Can't exist physically. We have to do certain things. We have to have resistance and viscosity and slow things down, and it doesn't. Where there's supposed to be tons of dark matter, it doesn't actually slow anything down. So it can't be material. But it's really simple, right? If you want to tell someone about this, be like, yeah, you know that the Big Bang model, the current universe model, the cosmology, it's been debunked. And they'll be like, well, what are you talking about? I'll be like, yeah, that's why so many thousands of physicists are proposing modified Newtonian dynamics. They're trying to replace gravity to save the cosmology because it doesn't work. Pretty simple. So I think the most concise way to just completely refute modern cosmology is to show and highlight the problems that required you to have dark matter. So I'll recap it real fast. 1933, Fritz Zwicky went and looked at a cluster of galaxies, just a group of galaxies. And the galaxies should have been escaping the cluster because they're supposedly held in by gravity. But you need a certain amount of mass to hold those huge galaxies in. But there was only 1% of the mass that would be needed for the gravity to be strong enough to hold them in. They just made up dark matter to try to say, oh, well, there's 99% of this invisible stuff that acts like matter, but we don't know what it is. To keep their theory alive, to keep their gravity alive, okay? And then you just keep going. We have more and more and more dark matter, where now they say 83% of all the mass in the entire universe is dark matter, okay? Assuming dark matter is real, whatever it is, it's now been debunked up to 99.99999% certainty, right? Because they watched where the dark matter would have to be. So it's easy to understand how they spot where dark matter is, right? The gravity prediction doesn't work. There's not enough mass. So to make it work, they say, oh, there's more mass there. I promise, you just can't tell what it is, and we don't know what it is. Well, when they look out and they assume that dark matter's there so they can keep their model alive, it doesn't work. It doesn't do what it would have to do. If it's actually material, right? If it has properties of matter, it would be causing resistance. It would slow things down as they interact, but it doesn't do that. Okay, so since dark matter has been falsified, relativity has been falsified, Newton has been falsified, therefore the universe model using those versions of gravity has been falsified. Evidence of that is all these people proposing modified Newtonian dynamics, trying to fix the problem without the need for dark matter, but even that doesn't work. Okay? Very simple. Next thing is redshift. Okay? Redshift is, again, it's like when the ambulance comes towards you, it sounds one way, it gets in front of you, it sounds a certain way, then it starts sounding different when it gets away from you. Okay, and it's the idea of that sound changing based on it coming to you or going away from you, only with light, right? And as it goes further away from you, it gets closer to the red end of the light spectrum. It goes away, it gets closer to you, then it goes towards the blue, right? And so they say, look, that's why there's redshift, because everything's moving away from us. Now, a lot of the stuff closer is blue, and they say, oh, well, it's because it's moving, and since its movement overcomes the distance moving away from us, it makes it look blue or whatever. The problem is, in fact, there are some things that are blue that are too far away, And there's some things that should be red that are blue, even though they're closer because of the size and the supposed speed and all this stuff. It shouldn't be blue. And then there are things that are way closer that have way more redshift and stuff further away. Okay? And there's many other things. Just the actual redshift distribution, like the periodical nature of it, right? So the quantification of it, the quantization of it, it doesn't match the prediction based on the distances claimed. It would be a very specific distribution based on supposed distances, but it's not doing that. It's a very periodical thing. It doesn't match the predictions. There are many other things. Redshift doesn't work. And so again, to explain the history, and I know I've explained it so many times, I want people to just understand it and just, you can have this conversation with anybody. And if anyone's a truth seeker, right, they're going to be like, wow. And they're going to go fact check you. They're going to find out that this is all just easily verified. Okay. But then you get into Edwin Hubble. There's something called the Hubble constant, meaning that there's supposedly, now it's funny they call it constant, but they say it's accelerative. But anyway, there's an accelerative expansion, meaning that things are expanding, like blowing up a balloon. There's like this inflating expansion. So just you blow up a balloon, they call that the universe. And it's accelerating faster and faster. Okay, it's supposedly going 4 times the speed of light. The whole universe, space itself, whatever that means, is expanding in all directions. And they said this because when we looked out in deep space, everything was moving in relation to the Earth, even though it shouldn't care about where the Earth is at all, because it's supposed to be this tiny little speck of dust in this insignificant corner that doesn't matter, out towards the edge of a galaxy that's in this insignificant random place. So it shouldn't matter, but everything we've ever seen moves in relation to the Earth. So they said, oh, well, it's just an illusion because everything's accelerating, expanding away from you. And they said the evidence for that is redshift. Okay, and now we've seen, no, that doesn't make sense. It can't just be that things are moving away from us causing redshift, because it doesn't work, right? The redshift doesn't match that claim. So now you have a problem. And even if there weren't the redshift problems, you need energy to make this universe allegedly expand. You need a ton of energy, a specific amount. And so, but supposedly it's a vacuum out there. So they're like, okay, what energy can be strong enough to expand the whole universe and be in a vacuum? So they went and looked at vacuums on the Earth, vacuum chambers, and they found some quantum background energy, and that's because there's an ether. And then they tried to apply that to what they need in space, and it was off by 10 to the 120th power. That's 120 zeros. It wasn't even close. Doesn't work at all. So they have no explanation for this, and they call that dark energy because it's just this invisible, transparent, undetectable energy that I don't really know, but it has to actually cause the motion. And then you have dark matter. These combined make up 96% of the entire universe, okay? If the Earth is stationary, you don't need dark matter because you can have just an ether. You don't need their versions of gravity, and you can have an ether. You can have substance there other than material. So you have matter, but then you have an actual substantive background. You don't need dark matter. Actually, if you get more detailed, right, like I said, what they call gravity is actually a non-point specific emergent property of the oscillations of a fluid background medium akin to an ether. It is an ether, right? And I gave you the analogy of throw a rock in the lake, it'll ripple. They say you have a little toy boat in the lake. Once the ripple hits the lake, it moves the boat. Just like if you're on a boat and there's a wave and the boat moves, okay? That's all it is. Things move relative to the vibrations or the waving of the medium. That's what it is. So, and you don't need dark energy because the universe is not accelerating and expanding. The cosmos is just this closed, finite system, right? And that's what we observe. That's what we observe, is that redshift is based on something different, such as magnetism. And like electromagnetic retardation would explain it. Also, yes, there is some correlation to what we think looks further away being more redshifted, even though that's typically how they claim it is further away, right? But that would make sense anyway because the light has to come, you have to look at the light, because I don't think light travels, obviously. You have to see the light through such a greater distance of a medium that it causes it to be more and more redshifted because it attenuates, okay? And so light attenuation and or electromagnetic retardation will cause this phenomena, okay? Therefore, you don't need dark matter or dark energy, which is 96% of their cosmology. You don't even need it. which means you're almost 100% more viable with the central stationary Earth. These are facts. These are facts. This guy. I mean, any rebuttal? Now, I guess what's weird about it is like, do you guys that fight this so hard, do you not want to know the truth? It's weird. I don't get it. All right. Anyway, and yeah, hey Caleb, man. I think I might have missed your messages. I've been kind of busy, bro. But let's link up, and I'll jump on TikTok. I'm gonna start doing TikTok and stuff. All right. So let me give you guys some housekeeping, and then we'll get out of here. So, like I said, tomorrow we'll bury atheism. I'll fully explain the problem with atheism and how, the antecedent to information and order, of course, is intelligent agency. Based on all empirical evidence ever and based on logic, because random chaotic disorder cannot bring about reoccurring meticulous order, and those words are very important. It's meticulous, it's sequential, it's a sequence, right? That's information, and it is reoccurring. So chaos theory wouldn't even work because it's reoccurring. You say, oh, time of the gaps, enough time, and I take a very intricate watch and put it in a jar and shake it up. I promise it'll be the world's most complex watch eventually. Okay, well, you need the watch to be made back to back to back to back to back. That doesn't work. It's not even remotely feasible logically. Okay, so anyway, we'll explain all of those, and I'll try and boil it down in a nice, digestible way with some graphics so that you guys can send the video to other people if you want to wake them up to the creator. I think I'm really feeling led to really start to partake in the philosophical debate against atheism and really focus on this evidence that we are in a very special position where we live. And I'm not gonna ever stop talking about how like the Earth is not a tilted, wobbling, spinning cartoon ball in a vacuum, but I'm just being led to really start to do those things. Okay, so we'll do that tomorrow, and then Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern, we have the follow-up, and I'll show you guys if you don't know. We have the in the field follow-up. Where we go here? I'm gonna delete that first one, obviously. We have Robert Bennett, PhD, here. We're going to have part 2. I need to actually change this to say part 1. So, yeah. We'll have this Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern. So you definitely don't want to miss that. And if you haven't seen this, it's definitely a lot of gravy. It's a bit long. And like I said, I'll try to make this one more interactive. But this guy's a legend. And we're going to keep in the fields coming. So like I said, if you have someone that you know or you have a suggestion, try to track down their contact, their emails or whatever, and then email inthefieldguess@gmail.com. Inthefieldguess@gmail.com, and we'll start reaching out to them. And hopefully I can eventually put together a team that can kind of help me with some of this stuff, but I can't really pay anyone to do that right now, so. Cool. So that is, again, Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern. Don't miss it. I know it's in the middle of the day, but just try to keep a reminder if you're able to watch that, because it's going to be awesome. And then what I plan on my next stream being is about the Israel situation, and then redoing an Ether stream, and then we'll bring back a Skull and Globers. And I have a new idea for a show that's going to be hilarious, so we'll do that. Still trying to work on all the shows. Some people are like, I like when you cover other things, like when you covered the directed energy weapons, or you covered Maui, or you cover different things. And I don't want to just be like, oh, flat Earth, geocentrism, flat Earth, geocentrism, over and over and over. I want to cover a bunch of different stuff too. Also, I'm going to try to work on eventually getting a podcast set up, and hopefully that'll work out. I think I might just want to do the podcast live though. I don't know that I really want to do the whole like edit the podcast. I like authentic feeling. Scott Lang, thank you $10 for Epic Gravy. Thank you for the Cash App, brother. Much love. And also, I saw where my boy Rob also sent me $7.77 on Cash App. So thank you for the Cash App. Pretty cool. I see it pop up now. So if you guys donate, I will see it in the moment. All right, cool. And then hopefully, I guess I can try to make it where PayPal does as well. So whenever you guys send donations, I'll be able to read them off. Thank you for your time and knowledge. Thanks. Much love. All right, so cool. Hopefully you guys. Oh, and then we'll have an ether stream, and that'll be absolutely epic. So, because what I'm trying to think, I want there to be streams that you really can send someone and be like, okay, this is it. If you're talking to someone about atheism, it's like, okay, you can send them the stream, and it's like, boom, you just let them really digest that. Just like I had the geocentrism stream with all those quotes, like that's a very thorough explanation showing people within their own fields, showing that the Earth could certainly be central, right? And then I want to do this with the ether. And that's a lot of information because it's still the same approach, right? Like atomism or ether, the only two real frameworks ever proposed. And we're going to compare them. We're going to show all the information and evidence for the ether. It'll be even more thorough than the first time. It'll have a lot of the same information and just be better quality. So there is what's coming up. Of course, we have Globebuster Sunday, 3 p.m. Eastern. We have December 2nd. I'm going to that church in Mount Juliet to have the flat Earth discussion. That should be epic. That guy has like 3 million followers on Facebook alone, so that should be really big. True Earth. So definitely keep up with that if you haven't heard of that. It's gonna be epic. I think that some truthers are going there, and there's gonna be a little hangout beforehand. So if you're able to go to Mount Juliet, Tennessee, you should think about it. It should be cool. And I think that's the creator working, and he's making that happen. So it's pretty exciting. And then we have our summit December 8th and 9th. And we already have some legendary guests. We're going to give some really big perks to VIP. So check that out. Also, if you are a Patreon, and I'll try to create a full system, but I'm going to NASA next week, and I will give you guys some exclusive insider information because I want to hook the people up that support consistently. And make this possible. Because I really have to figure out that whole situation to be able to keep doing this. And then we're going to drop the exclusive merch. And then I think we came up with some right now. We'll make some heliophobic merch, make some Misfit merch. Cool. So there you go. I'll announce more of this. We're going to get more curated. I'm starting to put pieces together. So cool. Yeah. Should be fun. Got some potentially big shows on the horizon as well. So stay tuned. And you can go to markdownlinks.com/@WitsitGetsIt or witsit.live. May work. Links in the description for all the links. And there you go. There's a bit of the update, the housekeeping. And then one more time, this is PO Box 48892, Tampa, Florida 33646. PO Box 48892, Tampa, Florida 33646. People that were asking. There you go. I think that we're good. Go ahead and go to rokfin.com/WitsitGetsIt if you want to watch the Israel stream in a few days, because obviously we can't do it on here. Buying some merch, nice. Yeah, it's going to be cool. Wow, you're a heliophobe and a globism bigot. Yeah, I actually hid that comment, dude. How funny is that? Okay, cool. All right, I love you guys. I know that this was kind of chaotic with the first start, and I know that just kind of all over the place, but hope you guys enjoyed. And I know you guys are going to like the future content coming, so we're just going to keep stepping it up. Thank you guys for all the support. And like I said, I'm going to start making a way that people that send like a certain amount through Cash App and PayPal each month or anything, they can also get these perks. And we'll have some perks for YouTube memberships as well. So I'll kind of create different things for each group or combine some of them. And yeah, like I said, do some behind the scenes stuff. So cool. All right, hopefully you guys enjoyed. Sorry, that was all the housekeeping. That's pretty much overdue, but all right, cool. So I'll see you guys tomorrow night. I'm not sure exactly what time, maybe 8. And we'll cover atheism. So it should be cool. And then Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern for In the Field. And again, if you have any suggestions for that show, because I want to start booking them further in advance, inthefieldguests@gmail.com. Send me the information, the name, and their contact info, and we'll try to get them on. If you have any personal connects, or able to talk to them yourself and set it up, that's even better. Like Alan from Space Odds did. You got the legend, Robert Bennett, the PhD physicist. So cool. All right. So you can speak truth unequivocally. Weak find contentment in the consensus of ignorance. So who cares what other people think? Always gonna hate. And weak-minded people always conform and then attack the people that are bold enough to speak on their own. So who cares about that? Links to support in the description. Should be. And thanks in advance. What's popular is rarely true, and what's true is rarely popular. So, you know, who really cares what the majority thinks about anything? Okay, I'll catch up with you guys later. Much love. Peace.
Relatively speaking, first day after the weekend. Relatively speaking, first day after the weekend. Mickelson Morley, they show that the earth they don't move, huh? What they do, shorten the length of the ruler. Hey, that's just how they fooled ya. Tune in Wednesdays, bet that we gon' school ya. Mickelson Morley, it showed no displacement. Mickelson Gale Pearson, it measured rotation. Let's break it down in layman. That means the Earth is stationed. No planets and spaceships, they're all animations. Relatively speaking, first day after the weekend. Relatively speaking, first day after the weekend.